and the craziest plane crash that turned survivors into cannibals. Imagine flying with some of your greatest friends to a weekend to remember. You suddenly feel bad turbulence, but it's nothing new. Things worsen. As the airliner descends, luggage falls. Your knuckles whiten as you clutch the seat arm. Next thing you know, you're frozen in a broken plane section, still in your seat. After crashing, you somehow survive. You have entered one of the harshest settings known to man without knowing it. Mountain ranges surround you with no vegetation or animals. Though alive, you'll soon be famished. Soon, your pal will say, "I'm going to eat the pilot." As absurd as it seems, it happened. This survivor's tale takes the cake. We can't imagine being part of this violent, sad, and heroic narrative. Beginning in the beginning. Thursday, October 12, 1972. On their way to a match in Chile, Montevideo rugby teammates are friends. The number 45 on the plane. Young, strong, and fit players, family members, supporters, and 5 crew members. Chartering an Air Force plane was the cheapest way to get to Chile, as commercial flights are pricey. They don't know that the American-made Fairchild F-227D is called the lead sled due to its heavy weight and poor engines. Soon they'll learn why its safety record is so poor. They only know it's the cheapest way to fly over the Andes to play a fun rugby match in Santiago. A violent storm over the Andes cuts short the first portion of the trip, forcing them to stop in Mendoza, Argentina. A direct flight to Santiago is available, however, the plane cannot fly over the mountains at 25,000 to 26,000 feet, 7,600 to 7,900 meters. Their journey will resemble a U-turn. This path avoids the tallest peaks and circumvents them. On Friday the 13th, they leave again. Fun vibe. Fun and games are had throwing the rugby ball around the jet. Players like Nando Pareto give their friends window seats to see the mountains better. Nando had no idea this simple gesture would save him. Soon after, turbulence begins. It's initially dismissed, and then someone notices that the mountains are right outside the plane. They don't realize the pilot and co-pilot made a big mistake. They assured air traffic controllers they would reach the airport in a minute. The clouds obscured their view, and they were 11 minutes away, not that minute. They were still in the highlands and couldn't turn right toward the airport safely. Since they were in the center of mountains with erratic winds, they plummeted and experienced greater turbulence. The plane spun, clouds broke, and the pilot saw a black ridge ahead. Since the plane tried to pull up in speed, passengers knew they were in peril. When the plane hit the ridge, its rear ripped off and it sped ahead. The wings fell off and left only the front of the fuselage after they likely impacted with another mountain at 13,800 feet, 4,200 meters above sea level. The plane's rear passengers were tossed onto the mountains. Some are alive on the plane but have no time to think. The plane crashes into a snowy peak. Incredible that even this much of the plane survived. What follows is even more amazing. The plane slides down the mountain like a sled without hitting any rocks or debris, stopping at 11,710 feet, 3,570 meters above sea level. Seats have been uprooted and bodies have hit the pilot's cabin front. Many passengers survived despite the chaos. Some are screaming, limbs mangled, and plane parts stuck in them. However, they are surrounded by glaciers so distant they have no name. Nobody visits there, so finding them is unlikely. At this level, the air is thin and frigid, making breathing difficult. The least injured survivors help the less fortunate. Nando will be in a coma for 3 days, while others have fractured bones or are almost dead from internal damage. 12 of the 45 passengers were killed instantly as the plane hit the mountain or fell out of the back. Some remains are found strapped to chairs, blanketed in snow near the crash site. At 22 degrees Fahrenheit, 30 degrees Celsius, the first night is extreme. The survivors cluster in the fuselage and use luggage to cover the gaps. They incorrectly believe a rescue operation will discover them and this will be their only alpine night. They are just wrong. They don't realize the plane's white tint makes it invisible from above. Injuries killed 5 more people that first night. During his coma, Nando doesn't know his mother is deceased and his sister is dying. Both only joined the trip because Nando was assured he could use the empty seats for free. Inviting them was his biggest mistake. The next day, the injured are treated, some screaming due to multiple leg and arm breaks. Pilot dies. The co-pilot who made that tragic error is alive but crushed under debris. He informs survivors he has a handgun and requests them to shoot him to stop his suffering. He dies soon after, although not killed. Now they need nourishment. High altitudes and cold weather require the body to expend calories quickly to stay warm. All luggage is inspected, and while there is plenty of smoke and alcohol, there is little food. 8 chocolate bars, a mussel tin, 3 jam jars, an almond tin, sweets, and wine are included. Immediate action by survivors rationing. Many folks have little and don't know how long it will endure. Water can be melted and poured into empty wine bottles. Day after day, more perish. On the 10th day, cognizant, Nando holds his dying sister. He then said he slept and woke up in hell. They then heard on a transistor radio they found him in the debris that the hunt for them was over, making things worse. They knew they were cold, hungry, and alone. In despair, Nando informed a friend, "I'm going to eat the pilot." Indeed, several survivors had been mulling this concept. One later told the media, "Our common goal was to survive, but we lacked food. We had exhausted the plane's meager supplies and discovered no flora or animals. After a few days, we felt our bodies consuming themselves to survive." They didn't consider it cannibalism. It was necessary to survive and reunite with their families. It was either friends or perish. There were 27 people left, a lot of mouths to feed. They stripped the pilots of every flesh, even organs, because their famished brains instructed them to eat more, eat everything, don't waste a bit. On day 17, catastrophe struck again. One said they heard wild horses running at them in the middle of the night. It avalanched. The fuselage was packed tight after snow blasted through the plane hull. The survivors searched for air and companions. 8 more died, and the rest spent 3 days in the dark, snow-buried with little air. The fuselage would sit on the snow again when the snow melted. Days passed, and they lived by eating more corpses. They smoked cigarettes and explored tiny areas. However, they would fatigue after a few hundred meters. The heavy snow and scant air overwhelmed their weakness. They also had snow blindness, which is sunburn caused by snow reflecting sunlight. They invented snowshoes and sunglasses to combat their surroundings and travel farther. They were still surrounded by deadly crevices. One survivor said, "We felt like insects trapped in the hugest forces of nature." Yes, almost nowhere on Earth is tougher for humans to survive. During one trip, they found the other fuselage part. Chocolate, sweets, and comic books were inside along with plain radio batteries. They read comics by the light of their fire all night. For a while, they thought they could use the batteries, but attaching a radio with many wires was beyond their abilities. Later, Nando added, "We were very depressed. His only option was to leave the highlands on foot." They knew Chile was west and remembered the pilot saying they were close to their destination. But they had no idea they were 37 miles 59 kilometers from the nearest road. But that hike would be difficult. They were inexperienced outdoorsmen facing 37 miles of glaciers and rugged terrain. They had no choice but to go over the mountains to Chile, Nando realized. The strongest Nando, Roberto Canessa, and Antonio Vizintin went to stock up on human meat. Only 16 survivors remained on day 61 when the guys left. Everyone was famished, unwell, and weathered. Carlitos Pease built them a sleeping bag from aviation insulation and copper wire before they went. Without that, they would have chilled to death on their walk to freedom. 3 days were needed to ascend the first mountain. On top of that peak, Nando spotted additional mountain ranges instead of lush valleys. Vizintin turned around and fed the others. Nando and Canessa said, "We'll die, but we'll die trying." They survived. After walking for days, almost fainting from exhaustion, they found a river, saw green peeping through the melting snow, and most importantly, saw a person on the opposite side of the river, though they couldn't cross to see him. The man returned the next morning after they slept there. He brought paper and a pen. They were fastened to a rock and thrown across the river. On the paper, Nando wrote, "We survived the plane disaster. No food, we can't walk. More of us are in the mountains. Where are we?" Tossed it back. The man sought rescue, hours by horseback from civilization. Nando and Canessa were captured by the soldiers on day 10. Horses carried their slender bodies. Nando declared himself ready to embrace life again. Soon, helicopters would carry Nando to find his buddies, with pilots wondering how they walked across such terrain without equipment. Amazingly, professionals tracked their path years later and found it hard and risky even with the latest technology. The first team member was picked up on day 71 and the remainder on day 72. All were unwell, but all survived and just one is dead. After the newspapers stopped celebrating the survivors, many wondered how they survived so long without sustenance. Impossible. Rescuers photographed a stripped-bone human carcass. Many people called the survivors cannibal savages once they confessed. Thank you for watching, and please like, share, and subscribe. See you later.